Okay, so in this exercise, you're going to learn several really important skills. One, hopefully you have already, and we'll just refresh that, which is finding a picture of yourself, taking a print screen, resizing them, and I'll kind of give you some guidelines as far as resolution goes. Okay, and then we'll create a code space and I'll walk you through the rest of the exercise. And we're going to do this for your public repo, but I'll talk about that when we get there. So, first, find a photo of yourself. It took me probably longer than I wanted to find one that I wanted of myself, depending on where you have your photos. And then I downloaded it. And once I downloaded it, I had it in my download. Now I'm using Windows here. This could be Mac. Won't make that much difference except when it comes to the app that you'll use. Now here's the original file that I downloaded, and I can see how big it was. I can see a lot of information, but what I wanted to do was I wanted to crop it. Now, and what we mean by that is I wanted to take somebody out because I wanted to just have myself, and that's really what I'm trying to show to you is that I want you to have just you in the photo. That would be my preference. And if you want to use some kind of image, then you don't feel comfortable showing your own picture, that's fine as well. So then when I'm on Windows, I can open this with various applications. So Windows now, and this is Windows 11, but I believe this is true for many versions of Windows now, comes with a built-in paint program, a photos program. I found playing around with these two photos was actually kind of easier to use. I used to use paint all the time, but I just went and found that. And then what I ended up doing here was I just edited the photo and then I ended up doing a crop, right? So I could just crop it. It was so simple. It was like, wow, this is like so amazingly simple. And so I did all that. I went ahead and saved it, saved a copy, and then and actually, I ended up putting it on my desktop. I saved it and actually ended up resizing it as well. Now, in this case, I saved it as what's called a JPEG file. And for photos, that's generally right. So these are the .jpeg is actually in the standard, but we won't get too much into that on this assignment. Okay, so I did that. That was my first step, so that I'm not. I've already done it. So, but you want to save that, and what's important too is understand where you end up saving it. Okay, so I ended up ultimately with mine on my desktop, and I ended up with it around 500 resolution, right? So that's when you resize. So if I went into here, back into here now that I have the photo of myself, I could hit edit right in here. Where did I find that? There was an option here to resize. It's always so funny when you're like, yeah, where was that option at? Okay, hold on, let me find it. Okay, so it was actually right here when I was hitting edit when I came in here. Then I just hit resize image and then I resize it to 500, which is generally for this kind of assignment. And we'll talk about images a little bit in this course because web development it's an important part. But around 500 now because these are tied because of the aspect ratio, which is really, and this should be somewhat of a review from taking like a CIT 15, but it doesn't hurt to understand a bit more about that and the quality here. And I pretty much once I hit 500 here, I let Windows do the rest itself. Okay. So that was my first thing was like get my photo and then crop out somebody and then resize it the way I wanted. Now on the print screen, this will be specific to, and they're also called screenshots. This will be specific to your operating system. For Windows now, and this is actually something that's changed. There's a couple things you can do. There's something called the snipping tool. I've used forever to do this. This year it changed a little bit to where it now does screen recordings, and I was like, what? So snipping tool is great. So what I ended up doing, and this is something that you can use that and select it, but I ended up having to do the print screen key on my keyboard. Okay. And when I did that, then I got that option. I'm not going to do it right now because part of what you want to do here is when you're going to take that print screen is have whatever you want on the screen to show us, right? To show us what your desktop is. Remember, this is an academic class, academic institution. We typically don't share things that wouldn't be appropriate for that. So just consider that as you're doing it. So now I'm going to do that print screen again, right? And now I'm just going to select the whole thing. Boom. And there we go. And then I get this little notice from Windows, and I'm like, okay, cool. So I can come in here, but I can also edit, like now that I have it, right? I could actually go in and just save it. That was actually what I ended up doing. Although all the things I need to do can also be done here as well. That's the thing with these apps is generally you can do everything you need to do. Like I could edit in Paint. I think I can also edit in Photos, but let's just edit in Paint because the thing you're going to want to do here is, again, that idea of a resize. And for this, it was a little more challenging because what I ended up doing was, and again, I'm sure there's a better way to do this, but I did view, I did full size. So actually, no, I don't want to do full size. I'm going to go back. So actually, what I want to do is view, and don't want to do, yeah, full. I want to fit to window. Fit to window is nice because what it does is it just fits that. Because this is going to be based on whatever your resolution is of your computer, right? So in this case, I wanted to resize it, and there was this nice little resize over here. But I was like, okay, first I had to select it. So then I had to come over here and use the little selection tool to select the whole thing. It was kind of a pain, but it's okay. And then I did a resize, and I'm like, okay. And this is where the percentage, but you want to look at pixels. So I want you to have, again, there's the idea of aspect ratio here, is I want to have a 720 or somewhere around there. Okay. Now, what happened with Paint was I got this, and then what I ended up having to do was actually just crop it. And then I was able to go File, Save As. And for print screens, typically what you do is a PNG file. And now I ended up giving it a name that was, and this is the other thing when you're giving file names, I should have mentioned this before on the other one. Actually, I don't think I got all the way to the save here. I could put them on my desktop, but then I also give them names. And typically, when naming things, lowercase, something like that, right? Because you can use dashes, that's fine, but typically lowercase, no spaces, just like when we were creating the repos. Okay, so now create your two files. So that's your first step, right? I already have my two files. I ended up putting them on my desktop so that they were easy to find. Okay, so the next step, once you get that part done, and again, reach out for help if you, not again, but reach out for help if you need it here. And so the thing we're going to do now is now you're going to create a code space for your public repo. So what you've done in the previous assignment is you created it for your private repo. So now you're going to create another code space for your public. So, see if you can do this without my help. Like if you want to do this, pause and try it on your own. But what I will do is now I will walk through that. So if you want to try that, and it's always a good way to see how well you got that content. So pause here. Otherwise, I'm going to walk through it. Okay, so to create a code space, we've shown already private. So now we're going to do public, right? Because you should have created both in that previous assignment. So under here, I'm going to go to code space. I'm going to create the code space. Should only take a second here to set it up. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is now in my code space, because now I'm getting more experience working with my code space. Last time I had you create a folder. We're going to create a folder again. I'll upload an image in this case, two images into this one. Okay. So I think it's almost good to go here. Yep. Got it ready to go. So now I'm going to come over here, and I know that's a little small. So I'll try to make it a little bigger. So again, I'm going to create a folder, not again, but like we did before. So now I'm going to call this one IMG. IMG is a typical file folder for images, okay, which is kind of cool. So images make sense. And now what we're going to do is I have these files here. I got these two files, right? I've got my desktop and I've got my image of myself. And I think this is as easy as it gets. You can come over here and I dragged it into there. Now we can see like these colors are changing. I have my white background, but I can see, and hopefully you can, I have an untracked file there. Okay, so now I can go to the next one. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to just drop it in there. And now I can clearly see I have two untracked files. So I'm going to go ahead and close these. Cool. And now I'm going to go down to my terminal. If it's not already open, you can go in and open it. I would do my get status. Like, oh, okay, I have some files in there. Notice how those are lowercase, no spaces, really good. So now I have my get status, so I have some untracked files. So get add star. Okay, so now I've staged them, right? So I've gone from untracked now, and remember these visual, and you can see the index was added, they were staged. And so now I'm going to do get commit dash m. Right? And if you forget, go back and look at your repo for the public because it has those commands in there. I'm going to say images for hello world because that's the assignment we're doing. Cool, right? And now I'm going to do get push. Okay, so now I have set up my code space. I've created a folder. I've then just dragged over the two images I wanted. One was a PNG, one was a JPEG. So two different types of files. I'm not going to count off if you don't. What I would probably count off for, though, in that case, is if you had put spaces or upper cases in the file names. So now that I've done that, I'm done here. And if I come over to GitHub, because this is what I'm going to need for the second part of this, which is to place this into the discussion, I can see I now have that. So what I would do, because I'm done with my code space, I'd come over here and I would stop my current code space so that again, I've talked already about the idea of time and how if you just close the tab, it hangs out for a little while. And because I know I'm done, I'm going to move on. Oh, urban memory is the name for this one. That's kind of cool. Okay, so I'm going to let that close. I'm going to come back over here. All right, so now let's actually, so we've done this part. So here's our step one, right? So now we're going to, and I think we can do this all in one video, is now we're going to embed this into the discussion. Okay. All right, so let's do this. So I'm going to hit a reply. So now in this reply, what you're going to do is now over, I'm going to close. I know I can see by my tabs, my code space stopped, and I'm going to click into images. I'm going to click on my first item here, okay, which is my desktop. And part of the reason I have you resize them is they're just smaller, which is nice, okay. And I'm going to right click and I'm looking for the open image in a new tab. Now you'll see why in a minute. So again, what I did is I clicked on the image, and you can do this, you'll do this also for the photo. And actually I think we should do the photo first, but it's the same process. So you can copy image location here, but if I remember right, it works better here because now I have the URL. Okay, I have the URL for this image. Now you might think, well, Rio, I already have in Canvas this cool thing to attach. And the answer is if you do that, you don't get the points for it because part of learning web development is actually learning how to reference things on different sources. Okay, so come over here again. Okay, so I'm going to grab that. I'm going to copy it. Okay, I'm going to come back to Canvas. And in Canvas, there's a couple ways and we're going to end up learning some HTML. But for this first assignment, you can come over to upload images. Now, don't let this fool you. You're actually not going to upload an image. What you're going to do, like if you might think this is the way to do it, but we have the URL. Okay, and if you click on URL and you hit paste there, right? And then it's my desktop. And we'll talk a little bit on our accessory part of this course about why these alts are important. Embedded image, right? So that's what we want. So upload image, which we're not. We're just giving a reference to an external source for that image. And then when I hit submit here, then it will show up, which is awesome. Okay. So by the way, good to know, very good to know that if you were to come down to the bottom of the post and hit this little greater than, less than, forward slash, right? So this is basically a tag, and this switches to what's called the rich text editor. This actually shows you that URL, shows you what's called an image tag you're going to learn about in this class. So that's cool. Canvas did some things where they did a post mention, they did that alt. And so if I go back, then I can still see that. And what's kind of cool here is I could actually give myself a return. What I did is it doesn't have to be that it's your photo first, but you get the idea, is I ended up clicking on the other side of the photo using my up arrow. So, and the reason I did that is now I want to go do my photo. So let's do that. So now I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go to the photo of myself. I'm going to do that right click, right click, open in a new tab. Because I think if I did this, I believe I've done this in the past, it didn't show up correctly, but who knows? Maybe that is a better way to do it. By the way, the resolution is also listed there, which is awesome. Okay, so I'm going to copy this. I'm going to come back to my post. Now, there's a couple of cool things I could do here. Instead of now doing that, if you wanted to do the upload image, you totally could. Okay, and let's just complete that just because, right? But you could also just copy the code from the last one, right? And we're going to embed, right? So if I hit submit here, then the photo of me shows up, right? And then that shows up. Cool. All right. So now you have embedded into Canvas an external reference from GitHub. And so this really is such, in my opinion, probably because I wrote it, but a great exercise for introducing students to the concept of, we don't always want to attach things directly into something like Canvas. We want to reference an external source, very common in web development. But if I come in here, I can actually see both of these posts, right? Now, let's do this because I think there is something else I'm going to have you do. Right, tell us, so what you want to do now, right, is now we've embedded these into discussion. Tell us about yourself, right? What OS are you using? Like for me, I'm using Windows, right? You might be using Mac, you might be using something else, right? Update your GitHub and Canvas profiles with your picture. That's really helpful. And then do two replies. Okay, so cool. I got it done in one video. So I know there was a lot covered here. If you need help, please reach out.